Hi, everybody. So today we're going to talk a little bit about the spring equinox. I know we had done a presentation a couple weeks ago, or a couple months ago now, as I'm thinking about it, where we talked about like the differences between when we were going from the new moon to the full moon and how we had to increase our eating when we were going from the new to the full. And then from the full to the new, we actually decrease our eating. And when it comes to the equinoxes, that doesn't really play a big part in, watching your habits or anything like that. There's not really a specific dietary thing. So I thought it would be more fun to really dig deep into like the old history and stories about the equinox and, how this time of year has come and talk a little bit about the goddess in her feminine aspect and the god in his male aspect. And as the equinox is a time of rebirth, the earth is starting to come back to life again. Sprouts are starting to shoot. It's also a time for us to set our intentions and to make sure that we're in alignment with our true potential and what it is that we want to do and what we want to accomplish. And so after, I go through this little story, we're going to talk a little bit about some journaling prompts that can really get you focused in where you can set some clear intentions now for the spring equinox to pull you through to the uh, fall equinox. Sorry, not winter, fall equinox. And then so when we have this aspect where we're setting goals in the beginning of spring to hopefully accomplish by the time the fall equinox comes, we have much more of a concise picture of what we want to accomplish at the time of the year when we have the most amount of energy. As we know, the spring equinox coincides this year pretty closely with Easter, and a lot of times with the Christian holiday of Easter, and also with Purim. And so they're all kind of in a planetary alignment. And a lot of times they're very much spread out, where Easter is so much further. But that idea of that Christian rebirth with Jesus is the same thing about this rebirth with the world and the earth and it coming back to life. And so feeling that rebirth within ourself. There's some different names for the goddesses and things like that. But really, it's the sacred animal is always like the rabbit or baby anything, baby chicks, because it's all about just the sprouting seeds of the new life. It's the balance of the year where it's been shifted. Winter's on the wane and spring is beginning. So we're going to start to notice it getting lighter longer. We're going to feel more energetic within ourselves. There's also a cautionary thing from an Ayurvedic perspective, that energy that we start to feel, we have to make sure that we don't burn ourselves out. So we want to keep that energy we don't want to go too gung ho and think that we're going to be able to push hard all the way to the fall. We have to make sure that it's like slow and steady, like the tortoise, so that we are getting our goals accomplished and able to move forward without depleting ourselves and being able to build ourselves in that process. The aspect of the goddess right now at this time of year is the mother and the maiden. So the maiden's coming back from the underworld, the mother's feeling energized, and she has her daughter back again. And then the aspect of the god in the spring is the trickster, the playful. He was just born at the winter solstice, essentially coinciding with the Christian holiday. And so the trickster is a real fun part of this time of year because we have to remind ourselves to, stay playful and stay lighthearted and make sure that we're on that path of doing the best for ourselves. We don't want to talk negative to ourselves. We might be trying multiple different things, and we want to make sure that we're staying open minded and that we're experimenting, going back to our core values in this group. So I really wanted to talk. I love this story of Demeter and Persephone. So the whole story of how like the underworld came to be with Corey and stuff. So it's just a little short story that I thought would be cute to read. And then after that, I was going to walk us through some journal prompts. But before I do that, I just wanted to pause and see if anyone had any questions or anything that they would like to bring up. All right. So this is the story of Demeter and Persephone. On a beautiful day in spring, Kore, the daughter of Demeter, was gathering flowers with her maidens in a green meadow. The earth was green, and her new growth was lush with bright crocuses, sweet narcissus, and fragrant hyacinths. The young woman sang as they picked the flowers and danced on the new grass. In a far corner of the meadow, Kore noticed a golden gleam. She left her maidens and went to investigate. There grew a golden flower more beautiful than any she had ever seen before. The flower's perfume made Kore feel joyful and carefree and just the tiniest bit afraid. She wanted to pick the flower and keep it for her very own. And even though she knew that she should never pick a flower that is the only one of its kind, she reached out her hand and plucked the blossom. Instantly, she heard a great roaring and crackling sound, and the earth shook under her. She fell to the ground. When the air grew still, she looked up and saw a very deep chasm had opened just in front of her, like a tunnel leading into the heart of the earth. Kore was a very curious maiden. She had lived all her life on the surface of the beautiful earth, loved and protected by her mother Demeter, who was the goddess of all green and growing things. Her life was filled with pleasure and abundance, but she had always secretly wondered what lay underneath the bright surface of the world. Where did the spring flowers come from when they pushed their way up from below? If they were so bright and lovely when they emerged, what wonders might be in the place where they originated? Here's an opening that leads beneath the earth, she said to herself. Now I can explore the realms below. Oh, maybe I shouldn't go down. I know my mother wouldn't like it, but I will, just a little way, just to see what's there. She left her maidens and the bright flowers above and entered the cavern. At first, the way was wide. Light came from the opening behind her. She could see the beautiful colors and interesting shapes of the stone. But the chasm began to narrow at first. The chasm began to narrow. At first, it was as wide as a room. Then it was as narrow as a hallway. Kore could not get very much, and she couldn't see. The stone was blocked, and the walls were light. But somehow the gloom made her even more curious. I should turn around, she said to herself. My mother will be worried about me, but I'll go on just a little bit further. So she went on, and the passage became narrower and narrower. Soon, she had to stoop down and bend her head to avoid the low roof of the tunnel. I'm so sorry. Sorry. To avoid the low roof of the tunnel. Then she had to drop to her knees and crawl. All the light disappeared, and she had to feel her way through the dark. I should go back, she told herself. This could be dangerous, and my mother will be so worried if I don't come home. But if I just go a little further, I might come upon something wonderful. So she continued on until she was lying on her belly, standing along the ground. Suddenly, she realized that the passage had become so narrow and tight that there was no room for her to turn around. She tried to push herself backward, but her hips stuck. For the first time, she felt afraid. Oh no, she said to herself, now I've done it. How will I get out of here? My poor mother will be so worried I can't go back, so I'll have to go forward and hope I can come to a wider place where I can turn around. But the passage continued to narrow until and she was fighting to squeeze through the rocks. Stupid me, why did I ever come here? Why did I leave the bright meadows and the beautiful flowers? I'll never see my mother's face or dance on the green grass. At that moment, the earth gave way beneath her, and she fell, tumbling and turning over and over down until she felt like she was flying through the dark. I'll be smashed to pieces, she cried. Oh, mother, why did I ever leave you? But she landed as softly as a feather that floats to earth in the heart of the underworld. All day long, Demeter was waiting for the returns of her daughter. While the bright sun was high in the sky, she didn't worry. She went happily about her tasks of helping the grain to grow and the trees to set fruit. But as the sun dipped into the west, she could felt the chill in her heart. When evening fell, Kore's companions came running back from the fields. Demeter, Kore is lost, they cried. The earth shook and opened, and when we looked back, Kore was gone. We couldn't find her anywhere. Kore, Demeter let out a heart-mending cry. My daughter, only daughter, where are you? Nobody could tell her where Kore had gone. I'll search for her, Demeter vowed. I won't rest until I find my daughter. And she began to search through the fields and the meadows, under the tall trees of the woodlands, and along the rocky coasts of the sea. She wondered. Have you seen my daughter? She asked every person she met. Corey, the bright flower maiden of spring, have you seen her? But no one knew where Corey had gone. Farther and farther, Demeter wandered. From the hillsides of Greece, she crossed the sea to the islands, climbing steep mountains and following the banks of the streams. But no one in the islands knew where Corey had gone. Demeter grew sadder and sadder. She couldn't eat or sleep, and she began to grow pale and haggard. She made her way to the mainland of Europe, following the great rivers and the dense forests and hidden valleys, but nobody could tell her where Corey had gone. At last, she wandered back to her homeland. She came to rest outside the gates of the town known as Ulysses, in the middle of a broad plain that was the most fertile land in all of Greece. She sat beside the well, covered her head with a cloak, and mourned. She cried until she felt completely empty. Then she got mad. I am the goddess Demeter, she cried. I shouldn't have to suffer like this. I am the one who makes all things grow, who gives the gifts of food and life. No more. Until Kore is returned to me, there will be no more growth. No food, no life, no seeds will sprout. No fruit will set, no grain will ripen, no young things will be born. Nothing until the whole world is dead and as empty as I feel. And so the gardens died, the grapes withered on the vine, and the fields were parched and empty. The people went hungry, and everywhere there was no joy. In the underworld, all was shadowy and dim. Corey wandered and wandered through the wide halls of stone. The spirits of the dead surrounded her like twittering ghosts. Help us, they hissed and whispered. We are so cold, so gray, and so lonely. You are so full of life and color and the memory of the bright sun. How can I help you? Corey asked. I am lost myself. Oh, why did I ever come down here? I want to go home to the bright meadow and the flowers. I want to see my mother's face. Stay with us. Come close to us, the ghost pleaded. They frightened Corey, and she ran from them through the twisting passages of the underworld. At last, she came to the largest hall, a great underground cavern. In the center, on a huge black throne, sat a god. He was dark and handsome, dressed in all black, and Corey knew instantly who he must be. Hades, she greeted him, lord of the underworld. I am your cousin Corey, the maiden of spring. Once this realm belonged to my grandmother Hecate. You took it from her, and now you must help me get back to the living world of sunlight and flowers. Corey, Hades greeted her. As soon as he said her name, he fell in love with her. In the realm of gray shadows, she was like a golden gleam of spring sun, like a rare flower that scented the air. He wanted nothing more than to take her and keep her forever as his very own. My dear cousin, Hades said, I am sorry to tell you that no one ever returns from this realm. You will have to remain here. But since you are a goddess, I will happily make you my bride, and together we can rule the land of the dead. But I don't want to be your bride, Corey protested. I want to go home to my mother. Come, sit here beside me, Hades said. She noticed a small dark throne next to him. Rest from your wanderings and have some food and drink. You'll feel better. I want to go home, Corey said, but she was so very tired, so she sat in the throne next to Hades. Don't be sad, Hades said. The underworld is a place of great riches. All the gold and jewels and precious stones belong to us. We are wealthy. I don't care about gold and jewels, Corey said. I want my mother. I want flowers and fruits and living, growing things. She was so sad she couldn't eat or drink. Back on Earth, the harvest had failed. Demeter still sat grieving beside the well. She was so shriveled and withered that no one recognized her as a goddess. To the people of Ulysses, she appeared to just be an old beggar woman. Still, they took pity on her, tried their best to cheer her up. They brought her soothing drink of mint and barley water, but she still mourned. Babu, the clown goddess, came and told her jokes, but she did not smile. The queen of Ulysses herself invited Demeter to her home. The goddess was not comforted, but she did appreciate the kindness of the people of Ulysses. Their city became the site of her temple, and their fields were ever the most fertile in Greece. And so, if you ever meet an old beggar woman, be kind to her. Remember, she may be the goddess in disguise. Since there was no food to harvest, famine covered the land. Everywhere people starved. At last, even the goddess and gods up on Mount Olympus began to feel hungry. No one was feeding them with sacrifices. No one was making offerings. This can't go on, Zeus, the thunder god, said at last. We must get Demeter back on the job. Can anyone reason with her? Until Kore is returned to her, she won't make fertility for the land or the people, said Hecate, the old goddess who was Kore's grandmother. Demeter can be very stubborn when she's angry. I think you'd better help her if you want to eat again. Well, where is Kore? Zeus asked. Didn't anyone see where she went? She can't just have disappeared. That's exactly what she did, said Hecate, the sun god. I see everything. I see everything. She went down to the underworld, and now Hades wants to make her his queen. The underworld, that's a serious matter, Zeus said. No one returns from the land of the dead. Then the people will starve and the earth will die, said Hecate, and even we, the goddesses and gods, will go hungry. Perhaps we can make an exception in this case, Zeus said. As long as Kore hasn't eaten any food down there, we can let her come back. Please eat something, Hades begged to Kore. She had grown sad and pale, yet to him she seemed even more beautiful, like a silver pearl in the dark. I'm not hungry, Kore said. I want to go home. Hades begged her to eat and tried to cheer her by showing her all the beauties of the underworld, the caverns of crystal and the glowing jeweled halls, the underground rivers and vast lakes, streams of molten golden lava. He was so kind, so attentive, so worried about her that she actually began to feel somewhat fond of him. Still, she wanted more than anything to go home. Please eat, Hades urged her. You are growing so thin. It hurts me to watch you suffer. He held out to her a handful of seeds of pomegranate. They were red as rubies, a brightness among the shadows. They appealed to her. After all, if I can't go back home, she told herself, I might as well enjoy what is here. She reached out her hand and took the seeds, popping them into her mouth. She sucked the sweet, tart juice. Instantly, everything changed. The shadows came alive. They were the ghosts' memories of all that had ever taken place above, but they were also the images of what had not yet been, rich with all of the possibilities of change and growth. The dead and the unborn danced together like colors in a kaleidoscope, and from their movement, new life would be born. Suddenly, Kore was filled with a joy and a power she had never had before. She plucked two flaming torches from a wall of the cavern and began to dance. She whirled and spun and leaped, playing with fire, dancing the way from death to rebirth and back again. The dead followed her as they spiraled together. Women in the upper world began to feel new life stirring in their wombs. This is where the seeds come from, she proclaimed. This is the wonderful place where flowers are born. And I am its queen, queen of fire. I am no longer just little Kore, Demeter's daughter. I am myself, Persephone, queen of the dead. She has tasted the food of the dead, Zeus said. Now what do we do? She has changed, Hecate said. No longer is she the sweet young queen and maiden that Demeter grieves for. She's now a queen in her own realm. She can never again belong wholly to the upper world, but she cannot belong completely to the underworld either. She must be a bridge between them, showing the dead the way to rebirth and reminding the living of life's end so they remember to be fully alive. For every seed she has eaten, she must spend 1 month each year in the underworld, Zeus agreed. But in the spring, she can return to the upper world with the new shoots that rise from the bare grounds and bring life and hope and rejoicing to her mother. And so, for part of each year, the earth will be bare and brown and support no life, Hecate agreed. But in the spring, when Persephone returns, all of nature will rejoice. And so Persephone rose from the underworld, and Demeter greeted her with new great joy. They danced together on the new grass, and everywhere their feet touched, spring flowers bloomed. And so each year, when Persephone returns, life blooms everywhere. But when she descends, Demeter covers her head with a cloak, leaves fall, and the harvest is gathered in, and life rests until Kore returns once more. And so This is from Circle Round, a book by Starhawk, Diane Baker, and Anne Hill. And this is actually a story written by Starhawk. And I just love the story of how it really talks about, winter as being such a barren time and then bringing new life. And so I just wanted to see if anybody had any thoughts or observations or anything that they'd like to share.
Danielle, I think that's such a lovely story. And, um, just thinking of her coming up in spring, and now I just envision her feet like lightly touching the ground, and then you see little bunches of flowers popping up.
Mm,
It's a very, very nice thought.
thank
And
you.
thank you so much for sharing that.
Thank you very much, Elaine. Yeah, definitely. I know it's not like 100% Ayurveda, but we are talking about the solstice. So I really did want to bring in some of those old stories. And Greek mythology is, I think beautiful. I don't understand as much of the Ayurveda, customs and stuff. I'm learning as I'm going. So,
I would say I think this one was beautiful. I haven't heard this, I guess, rendition of it as much. There's a lot going on around now of like taking the feminine aspect of stories about goddesses and actually making them more of like maybe how they would have done them versus like the male aspect of what they did. For example, like the Medusa story and that kind of thing. So I really appreciate how you read this one, because like the one that you typically hear is, she was stolen away and forced and like all this kind of stuff, and that doesn't give any power to the goddess. It was basically making it seem like she, typically just has to go along, and here she made her choice and she chooses, as the goddess does, in her own glory of like, this is what I choose for my life. So I love that you chose this one to share with us.
thank you. Yeah. I think the goddess power is something that's definitely very lacking in our society. And I think, as we all sit here together, we reclaim that energy, and us even getting together, weekly and a couple times a week and stuff, you can feel the energy that comes from this group as just a bunch of women. And I think we need to just really honor that. So thank you for pointing that out, Tara. Does anybody else have anything they'd like to share before we get on to some journal prompting? All right. So, as we talked, the spring equinox is a time of rebirth, and it's a time to really set our intentions and to nourish the ideas that we've planted in the winter. So, most of us went through the winter. We did a lot of like introspection. We're getting ready to do this, deep introspection and cleanse in the middle of April. So, this is all kind of like pulling this together. But looking at the fact that this is a time of rebirth, I want us to set some really clear intentions now of like what we hope to accomplish from now until the fall equinox. And so journaling is, a time to really focus your energy, like, and just really, really focus your energy. And I remember when I was young being in like creative writing classes and things like that, I would say, well, I really don't know what to write about. And my teacher would say, well, go ahead and just start writing that. I don't really know what to write about. And after a while, things would start to come out because our subconscious will come through those blockages that we have in our conscious. So when we use these journal prompts, I'm going to go through them a little bit with you here today, and I'm going to give you guys a few minutes to like really think about each question. But I really want you to, maybe one question hits home a little bit more, or maybe, you like them all, just to really sit with them a little longer over the course of the next few days. We're coming up to the energy of the full moon, so it's really building energy. We have a lunar eclipse that's coming up on Monday after the full, or on the same day as the full moon. So it's a really, really powerful time. So if you can really just hone in on those positive intentions and plant those seeds, that manifestation will really carry through really well for you. We really just want to contemplate and envision what it is we want. So envisioning is like the really great part of manifesting. You can write something down, but when you actually envision it for yourself, it just brings that to such a deeper level, and it really, you own it more. Um, so if you guys all have a notebook, that would be lovely. And then we're going to start with the first question, which is, and I'm going to give you guys probably like 2 minutes no, I'll give you 3 minutes to write. And then we can share if anybody has anything they would like to share. So the first question is, what has shifted and transformed that no longer serves you? So think about those things from the winter that are just, you don't need them anymore.
Can you ask that question one more time?
Absolutely. What has shifted and transformed that no longer serves you? And actually, Britt, I'm glad you said something. Let me put it in the chat.
Are you meaning like our intention, like to change it now?
So in your life, we originally, when we came into this, we've done a lot of like journaling and things like that. And as we set intentions and set a sankalpa and things might have changed. So anything, it can be a spiritual, it can be an emotional, it could be a mindset, it could be dietary, it can be in relations with others, it can be in your meditation practice, anything that has shifted and transformed. So anything that you've noticed that shifted and transformed that you no longer really need to hold on to. Maybe you had this limiting belief when you first started this collective, or maybe, I'm trying to think of some other examples. You never thought you could give up sugar, and then you gave up sugar for the month of January with Jeremy, and you felt amazing, or whatever it is that just no longer serves you, that's changed in you.
Is this like since we joined the collective?
This is your whole life. Yeah,
okay.
It's just whatever. Yeah. I was just using the example from the collective just to kind of bring something. Do you guys need more time? Does anybody want to share anything that they've come up with? I have something that has been a radical, like, thought process change for me that's come up in the recent months. That whole idea of don't take it personally and stuff like that. I'm good with that, but I always, when somebody was judgmental, I got my feelings hurt that they were judging me, whatever it is that they might have been judging about me, whether it was, how I spoke to my child, or, how I drove my car, whatever the case may be. And when I finally started to like do some research and stuff like that, I realized that when someone is judging you, it is an aspect that they see in themselves that they don't like, and that's why they are judging you. I'm going to repeat that again because it's kind of a interesting concept. When someone judges you, what they're judging you for, they have that aspect within themselves and they don't like that. So they're being judgmental of you.
So I dealt a lot with that concept when I first decided to just take a break from drinking. I didn't even tell people I had quit drinking. I just told them, I'm taking a break. And it was interesting because one of the books, I forget what book it was that I was reading about not drinking and stuff like that, actually said, when you stop drinking, it's almost like you have 1,000 little mirrors glued to your body. And what would happen I would still go to the bar and I'd still be around people who I was around when I drank regularly. And they would always have to find a reason beyond me just not wanting to drink in order to justify why I wasn't drinking, or they would look at me and they'd go, "You're not fun anymore," and this, that, and the other. And I was like, I knew I was still fun, but it was very interesting. And I thought about that all the time. And a lot of times the people who were not just like, "Oh, that's great. You're not drinking. Good for you." Like, that's all you need to say. The people that
Yeah.
really were bothered by it. Like, what do you care if I drink or not? You don't care if I'm acting stupid or not. Like, you really don't. And it was always the people that clearly had their own struggle with drinking that were the more judgmental of me. So I think about that all the time. And it's really interesting to be introspective about that, because you start to think, why am I jealous of this person? I also heard something somewhere that was like, when you're experiencing jealousy, stop and like think about, or like if you resent someone for something they have, that might be symbolic of something you might want. So maybe instead of seeing that person as someone you should have anger towards or jealousy towards, reflect on, okay, what do they have that I want? And like, how do I make that for myself?
Definitely. Thank you for sharing that, Emma.
I'll share real quick.
Okay.
I like that drinking. I like what you said about like you have 1,000 mirrors around you just reflecting everyone else's stuff. I would say the number one thing that has shifted and transformed, and this was so big for me. I didn't even know I was doing this until I separated. But putting men on a pedestal and believing in them more than me and trying to please them while disregarding my own wants and needs and giving my power and energy to them instead of investing in myself. And I am investing in myself now by doing stuff like this and going back to school. And I believe in this kind of work. I believe in Ayurveda, and I like to garden a lot too. I'm so excited. It's springtime. I'm going to get out and plant today. We have some beautiful weather. I'm going to just plant some greens. And then I would say the other thing that has shifted and transformed was I used to smoke weed. And a couple of years ago, I learned THC is inflammatory and CBD oil is anti-inflammatory. And I think, well, I didn't smoke a lot, but when I did, I didn't realize how much inflammation it was causing in my body. So that has shifted, and that's huge. I thought I would drink alcohol the rest of my life, and I haven't touched it in like 8 years. And I thought I would just be smoking weed the rest of my life. I thought it was the greatest thing ever. And I don't do that anymore either. And as I look back, I was like, wow, I've grown up a little bit. And I'm feeling better because of one of these changes.
Those are some powerful transformations, Brett, for sure. the first one that you said about just even how you viewed men and, putting them on a pedestal. I mean, that's huge once you shifted that focus back to yourself. That's very powerful. And I'm glad.
Me too. Thanks.
Yeah, definitely. Does anyone else have anything else they want to share before we move on to the next journal question? Okay.
I have something to share.
Hi, Kay.
Yeah, hey. So, um, I always have to ask myself, how much of my energy goes into investing in what other people think of me? And how much of it is just self-determined? And um, I just think that's an important thing for me to consider is, where is this goal oriented or is it relationship oriented? Anyway, that's all I need to say, I think.
No, I think that's a really important point and distinction. Sometimes I know, for me, myself, I spent a lot of my time determining my self-worth by what other people used to think of me. And so actually taking that and realizing that, putting things in perspective of where I want to go and where I want to be in life and not worrying about like what people think as I'm getting there. So yeah, thank you, Kay, for sharing.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else?
I like what Kay had to say about not caring about what people think. I went to an Ayurveda conference in California over the weekend, and several speakers were speaking to women's health. And I wrote it down somewhere. I can't find it right now, but they said once a woman hits like around menopause, they have no more fucks left to give. And they're way more confident in their own skin. The way they said it was just so cool. I was like, wow. They're like, look at the confidence of a menopausal woman compared to like an 18-year-old. Like an 18-year-old is still like, oh, what does that person think of me? And they're trying so hard to fit in. And once we get a little older, it's like, we don't give a fuck. Like, let's do what we want to do. Pardon my language, but
That's true. So true.
Menopause.
All right. So on that note, we're going to move on to question 2, which is, what is awakening with you at this time of year? Whether that's within your psyche, whether that's within your body, whatever it might be. We'll journal about that for a few.
Sorry, Danielle, can you please repeat it again? I'm in the middle and I've forgotten.
No worries. What is awakening with you at this time of the year?
Okay.
All right. So would anyone like to share what they might have come up with this one? I'll share some of what I've found out. I definitely noticed that my appetite is much more increased, like as spring has come, but I've noticed that it's changed. I want a lot more fish. And I do want just leafy greens with everything, whether it's just like a pile of them at the bottom of the plate and then everything just put on top of it. But I do want like a lot more like seafood and fish and things like that, nothing real heavy. But my appetite, I feel like I can eat much more. And I'm feeling much more adventurous this like year with spring. I'm going to be turning 50 this year. I'm getting ready to join Jeremy in India, and I just feel like, that's only the first of however many like trips and retreats and stuff I want to go on this year. I think I want to go on like 5 or 6. So anyway, that's how I'm feeling.
I'll share real quick.
Thanks, Britt.
Would say a desire to garden is really hitting me. Even though I'm just renting and I have a tiny yard, there's like a little patch of dirt that's like 3 feet by 3 feet. And I'm going to go play in the dirt this week. And then just wanting to connect with loved ones, friends, and family, either for like a breakfast, a lunch, or going on a walk. So yeah, and it's like strong. And the leafy greens. I've been eating so much the past week or two. And I like how you said just adding the food on top of it. Because I like to eat my greens slightly wilted. I know Ayurveda speaks about that.
Yes, definitely. Well, the gardening, that'll be wonderful. You can plant something nice and be harvesting. And it doesn't matter if you just have a little patch of grass. Think about how happy the earth's going to be. Mother Earth would be like, thank you, Britt. And then, yes, with the leafy greens, like sometimes I don't go and saute them or anything. I'll just put them on the bottom and put the hot food on top, and they become wilted. And it does kind of the similar trick. And it works for my digestion. It doesn't cause any issues for me. Anyone else want to share?
I'll share. So there's been a number of things. I mean, spring is such a interesting time, and my diet has, radically changed from the fall and winter diet into similar things of what y'all have already spoken about. There's an urge in me to expand into the larger community. So that whole expansion energy, I can feel that pretty strongly right now. And in the same way, I want to expand out of my house and into the yard. And last night I went to an event that a friend of mine who's a botanist was doing, and it was about prairie restoration. And I live on a postage stamp yard. And I was thrilled when he said, even on a tiny little 5-foot square patch of ground, you can create a prairie. And I just went, oh my gosh, I can do this next to my vegetable garden so that I can bring in all those pollinators. So again, it's about connecting with the larger thing and, connecting with nature in that way, where the larger ecosystem, the pollinators and the other garden helpers have a place that is conducive to their life, that's nearby, that's in my realm, so I can connect with it. So it's about connection and it's about expansion. And, I guess that's kind of the crux of it.
Definitely. That's this time of year energy. Okay. And so that's wonderful that you're feeling like expanding, you know? I'm so happy for you. Anyone else want to share? I have one more journal question.
I'll share.
Hi, Lily.
Hi. So something that's awakening for me at this time, and it's very connected with your previous journaling prompt, is so for me, something that's been transforming is letting go and decluttering, and not only from objects, because I live in a tiny place, I don't have so many, but going through life, we always accumulate. So there is always something to throw out. But for me, what's more important to declutter is the amount of obligation that I pile on my schedule, because I end up going into doing nothing. So with that, I've noticed that what's awakening for me by decluttering my schedule, by taking less, by giving my energy to what's really important, is actually that my energy has upgraded in a way that I feel good, and I crave healthy foods, and I'm releasing the unhealthy stuff. So I definitely have a little bit of addiction when it comes to coffee. And I notice I wake up in the morning and I don't even want to drink coffee. You know how is that feeling that you just think about the food and you really, really crave it. That for me is chocolate and coffee. But the moment I think about it is I feel nauseous. So there is this extra healthy something that's awakening for me. It feels like that it's excited about the spring, about all the fresh fruit, all about, even the cleanse. I'm excited about the cleanse like I've never been before. And yeah, I think with the spring, there is a sense of renewal for me.
That's awesome, Lily. Yay. I love that. I love that for you. All right. I'm going to do the last journal prompt and then we can circle back in like 3 minutes and if anybody wants to share. So this last one is actually like we've been talking about this. So if you were to sow seeds of your own dreams in the spring soil, what do you wish to harvest in autumn? So imagine if you plant something now, what do you want it to look like? And this goes back to that envisioning. What do you want your life to look like? What do you want your body to feel like? Where do you want to be in, your psychosocial, in your career, in whatever by fall equinox? And that one I'm going to post in the chat also. So I posted all 3 questions in the chat. So it'll be with the recording. Okay, so does anyone feel like sharing this one? What seeds you're going to plant and harvest in autumn?
I'll share.
Hi,
I
Emma.
am planning on, I'll put my camera on. I am in probably the biggest weird transition period of my life where I am sort of jobless, but not, because I'm doing Ayurveda. And I know what I'll be doing for most of, July and August, and then a little bit, before and after that. But in that time and moving forward from now, and what's been my plan is to really try and establish my business and how I want it to flow. I've learned a lot the past year and few months in trying to do that. And so, with finishing school, I want to basically like tie up loose ends, and in tying up loose ends, cultivate a functioning business, but also with the cleanse coming up and just where I'm at and the time I have to put towards myself outside of like doing school and this, I really want to hit the ground running, like with my health. I always feel like I take, a few steps forward and then a few steps back and a few steps forward and a few steps back. And like, I really want to go hard in a healthy, sustainable way. And the summer always and spring always gets me like excited to do that. It was like last week, it was really nice here for a few days, even though I had a terrible allergy reaction. But now it's like cold again this week, like super cold. And so I'm like, okay, I'm gonna give myself permission to like not get up early until we're back in the 60s, because I cannot get myself out of bed. But I've been doing other things, I'm like, I'm really trying to get myself just ready to feel good and focus, worry less about my partner and worry more about what I need to do to keep myself happy. And, in turn, hopefully make everyone happy around me and just have my, be able to do what I want to do, which is Ayurveda, and then also ski in the winter, and then also just do other stuff. So that's the real plan, is cultivate flexibility.
I like that for you. I like that a lot for you, Emma. I actually want to be more fit and active and stuff like that. So I've started working out more, and I figure that's going to be like the theme through, the whole summer and stuff like that. Maybe I'll like get back out, doing things I haven't done in a while, like wakeboarding. So maybe, I don't know. Britt, Lily, do either one of you guys want to share anything that you want to?
For me, I have to meditate a little bit more on this because I really am doing one step at a time right now. And I like to focus on that one step at a time thing. As I am trying to let go, I don't want to slip back into that, do. And I have to check with myself to see what is it that I actually want. And I have another few weeks here to be able to seed it so I can plant it in the harvest of the fall.
I love how you do that, Lily, how you're always like coming back to self and like reestablishing and reevaluating. That's an amazing quality that through the years, like you've always been like, I don't know, I have to go sit with that. And I like that a lot. So, and yes, you are right. Over the course of the next few weeks, we will be journaling a lot. There's going to be like, Emma's got a whole plan, going to journal some things out and then like really set our intentions for the cleanse and stuff. So this is all part of it. This is just like a little, I guess these questions are just a little like warm up to where we're going to be going, and we're going to be getting deeper into this and like really setting some great intentions with our cleanse and really releasing a lot of stuff with that.
Now that it's just us, Emma and I were texting earlier, but we're still meeting tomorrow at 12 o'clock because we were talking either way we're gonna meet